Dust rolled across the wide Kansas plain as the crowd gathered around the makeshift poker table outside Dalton's saloon. Men leaned in close, cigars glowing, eyes sharp. Among them sat Luke Callahan, a rancher known for his iron will and reckless bets. He had just pushed his last stack of coins into the center, convinced luck would favor him one more time. Across from him sat Silas Boone, smiling in a way that made Luke's stomach tighten. "Call," Luke said. Silas turned his cards slowly. A winning hand. A hush fell over the crowd. Luke stared, then let out a dry laugh. "Well, I'll be." Silas leaned back, folding his arms. "A deal's a deal, Luke. You said if you lost, you'd marry the lady I choose." Luke had been half drunk when he'd made the bet, but the words rang in his ears now. "Who?" Silas nodded toward a young woman standing near the saloon porch. Her skin glowed deep brown in the fading sun, and her long black hair was tied neatly behind her back. She stood straight, eyes calm and proud. Her name was Amara. Luke had seen her around town, working at the small bakery and helping her aunt who ran it. Folks whispered about her because she was different, because she didn't bow her head or let insults slide. Some admired her, others feared her. Silas said quietly, "You'll marry Amara." Luke felt the room spin. "You can't be serious." "I am." Amara's eyes met Luke's across the dusty yard. She had heard everything. That night, Luke rode back to his ranch in silence. The stars above seemed colder than ever. He had never planned to marry, much less be forced into it by a foolish wager. But in the Old West, a man's word was his bond. 2 days later, they stood in a small church with only a handful of witnesses. Amara wore a simple blue dress. Luke barely looked at her as the preacher spoke the vows. When it was over, he tipped his hat and said stiffly, "I'll make sure you're taken care of." Amara lifted her chin. "I don't need charity. I only expect respect." The first weeks were tense. Luke gave her a room in the ranch house but kept his distance. Amara helped cook, clean, and tend the small garden out back. She never complained, but Luke could feel her disappointment like a shadow. One evening, a storm swept across the plains. Thunder shook the windows. Luke found Amara sitting by the fire, reading from an old book. "You don't have to stay up," he muttered. She looked up. "I know." Something in her quiet confidence unsettled him. Over time, Luke began to notice things. How she laughed softly when she thought no one was listening. How she spoke kindly to the ranch hands who treated her like she didn't belong. How she woke before dawn to bake bread for everyone. One morning, Luke rode out to fix a broken fence. A rattlesnake struck his horse, sending it bucking wildly. Luke was thrown hard to the ground, his leg twisted beneath him. Hours passed before Amara noticed he hadn't returned. Ignoring the worried looks of the ranch hands, she took a horse and rode out alone. She found Luke pale and barely conscious. Carefully, she helped him onto her horse and brought him home. For days, she stayed by his side, changing his bandages, feeding him soup, and cooling his fevered skin. Luke watched her in quiet awe. "Why do you care?" he asked weakly. She met his gaze. "Because you're my husband, whether we chose it or not." Those words stayed with him. When he was strong enough to walk again, Luke tried to help her more around the house. They began to talk in the evenings. Amara told him about her childhood, about her mother who had taught her to read, about moving from town to town searching for a place that felt safe. Luke told her about his lonely upbringing on the ranch, about his fear of ending up just like his bitter father. Slowly, something between them shifted, but not everyone in town approved of their marriage. One afternoon, Luke rode into town with Amara beside him. As they passed Dalton's saloon, a group of men sneered. "What's a man like you doing with her?" one of them shouted. Luke felt anger rise in his chest. He turned his horse and rode back, eyes blazing. "That's my wife," he said. "You'll show her respect or you'll answer to me." Amara stared at him, stunned. From that day on, Luke defended her without hesitation. And she stood proudly by his side. Months passed. The ranch prospered. Laughter filled the house that had once felt empty. Luke found himself looking forward to coming home, to seeing Amara's smile, to hearing her voice. One evening, as the sun dipped low, they sat on the porch watching the sky turn gold. "I was wrong about this," Luke admitted. "About you. About us." Amara smiled gently. "We both were." He reached for her hand, nervous. She didn't pull away. "I didn't want this marriage," he said. "But now, I can't imagine my life without you." Her eyes shone. "Neither can I." They kissed under the fading light, a promise stronger than any bet. Years later, people would tell stories about how a stubborn cowboy lost a foolish wager and gained the greatest treasure of his life. How a woman once judged by her skin became the heart of a thriving ranch. And how love, born from chance, grew into something deeper than anyone ever expected. On the wide Kansas plain, where dust and wind ruled, Luke and Amara built a life filled with trust, laughter, and a love that proved even the harshest beginnings could lead to the sweetest endings.